After being abandoned for infertility, she discovers an amazing new life with a single dad CEO. Emma stood in front of the mirror, her reflection betraying the whirlwind of emotions inside her. She adjusted her blazer, feigning confidence, but beneath that facade, self-doubt clawed at her. Once, she had presented groundbreaking research at global conferences. Now, she was a part-time employee at a local clinic, a mere shadow of her former self. The whispers of a woman with a broken dream followed her like a constant echo in the quiet hallways. The weight of societal judgments was crippling every glance, every silence seemed charged with pity. Facing another empty weekend, she scrolled through her phone, numbly searching for distraction, when an invitation caught her eye. Jake, the charming CEO, was organizing a charity event, and the vibrant images leaped off the screen like rays of sunlight breaking through a dreary overcast. Could this be a chance for a spark of hope? She hesitated, biting her lip, battling the relentless reminder of her own childless status. With a mix of trepidation and curiosity, Emma forced herself to attend. The community center buzzed with laughter and chatter, a stark contrast to her own quiet existence. Picture-perfect families surrounded her, and she sank deeper into an ocean of alienation. Emma felt invisible, gripping her purse tightly as if it could ground her in this overwhelming space. The memories of her husband's betrayal surged to the forefront of her mind, a feeling of loss squeezing her heart. Would anyone notice if she slipped away? Before she could act on that impulse, Jake appeared, his easy smile disarming her defenses. They exchanged casual banter, but an undercurrent of grief connected them. In moments of quiet tension, she wondered if he could sense her fragility. The evening unfolded with surprising warmth as Emma helped Jake with his daughter, Lily. Teaching her about science allowed Emma to lose herself in the innocence of youth, even momentarily drowning out her own bitterness. Each laugh from Lily felt like a shared breath of fresh air, yet, the fleeting glimmers of joy clashed with nagging fears. Was she truly ready to open herself up again? Every compliment Lily showered made Emma's heart swell, but beneath that lay a whisper of insecurity. Could she navigate the uncharted waters of romance while still feeling like she was sailing on a sinking ship? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days blurred together, each filled with shared laughter and fleeting moments of intimacy with Jake that felt almost foreign. But just as rapidly as their connection deepened, insecurities reared their head. Watching Jake thrive and climb higher within his career, a sense of loss rippled through Emma. She felt the crushing weight of worthlessness, her own achievements now lowly in comparison to his achievements. And then, the clinic faced budget cuts, a threat that loomed larger than her self-doubt. Would she still have the chance to make a difference in Lily's life, or would she lose the very bond that was giving her life new meaning? Emma found herself at a precipice, a moment of sheer panic where ambition collided with the longing for connection. The tension surged, she could feel her breath quickening. Would she retreat into the safety of her old life, forever defined by her inability to have children, or muster the courage to reclaim the identity she fought to build amid the ruins of her past? As Jake's laughter faded into the background, Emma's heart raced with a determination she had almost forgotten a storm brewing inside her, yearning for resolution. What would she sacrifice for the kind of love that eclipsed all her previous sorrows? The air felt thick with necessity, a surreal void where her future hung tantalizingly in the balance. Emma's thoughts spun as she walked away from Jake and Lily. The echo of their laughter faded, replaced by the clamor of her insecurities. Each step felt heavier, burdened by the weight of her discontent. Who was she now? Lost in a maze of self-doubt, Emma took a deep breath, forcing herself to confront the lingering question that loomed larger than her fear. Was she truly ready to step into a life that felt out of reach? Sitting alone in her sparsely decorated apartment later that night, the sterile silence surrounded her. The distant hum of the city felt alien, a stark reminder of the whirlwind she had just experienced. She flicked through the channels on her television, trying to chase away the creeping shadows of inadequacy that threatened to engulf her. But none of the scripted dramas could mask the reality of her life. Emma caught sight of her reflection in the screen, a fleeting glance that stoked the embers of ambition buried beneath layers of doubt. Taking a deep breath, Emma opened her laptop and pulled up a blank document. The familiar sight of a white page beckoned to her, a canvas waiting to be filled with purpose once more. She hesitated. What could she possibly write? Thoughts of her career surfaced, memories of her accomplishments tangled with her current situation. The clinic was small, progressing toward the brink of closure, but that didn't mean her work had no value. She had insights that could breathe life into its mission. With each keystroke, she began documenting innovative approaches that could help the clinic optimize its resources. It wasn't much, but it felt empowering. Emma found herself immersed in a professional fervor, a sensation she had thought elusive. Ideas bloomed, connecting her past experience with a desire to regain control over her future. Could she harness her expertise to not only save her job but also rekindle her sense of identity? Just as conviction began to bloom within her, an email notification popped up on her screen. It was from Jake, a simple message prompting her to join a strategic meeting for his charity initiative. He had noticed her investment in Lily and believed her professional insights could enhance their project. A thrill coursed through her. Was this not the perfect opportunity? To step back into the professional spotlight? Yet, doubt flickered. Was she merely going to be the woman who helps, again reduced to someone else's assistant in the grand scheme? Emma's heart raced as she considered her response. It could mean stepping beyond the shadows, back into a light where her capabilities were recognized, or it could expose her vulnerabilities, perhaps risking the budding connection she had formed with Jake and Lily. Was she ready to navigate that delicate balance? She leaned back, grappling with the possibilities. On one hand, the thought of working closely with Jake ignited a tremor of excitement. His passion was contagious, and in their collaboration, she could see a flicker of what had once driven her. On the other hand, the shadows of her past loomed, reminding her that vulnerability could also lead to pain. With a firm grip on her decision, Emma pushed away the fears. Taking an impulsive leap, she typed a response, her fingers dancing across the keyboard. "I would love to contribute," she wrote, her resolve slowly crystallizing. The words fueled a realization. She was no longer merely defined by decisions made long ago but poised to redefine her future. But as she hit send, a wave of doubt washed over her. What if Jake's expectations were too high? What if she failed? The battle within her raged, fueled by an urgent need for validation. Was this a new path, or merely another path toward disappointment? Emma's gaze shifted to the window, watching city lights flicker against the night sky, a stark contrast to the dimness that often clouded her heart. The tension lingered, as unresolved and charged as an electrical storm overhead. Chaos brewed within. She could sense her own potential, yet the fear of liberation gripped her tightly. What lay ahead held promise, but also uncertainty, a road she had shunned for too long. She needed to choose boldly. In that moment, she understood that to find the love and connection she yearned for, she had to be willing to confront not only her fears but also her fears of success. And as she prepared to take that first step into a new chapter, a distinct thought crossed her mind. The time had come to face what she had always avoided, the fear of rising and standing tall amid those she once deemed unattainable. She needed to prepare herself for the risks involved in professional growth and personal connection. But as she pushed forward into the unknown, another email pinged, jolting her from her thoughts. With a mix of curiosity and apprehension, Emma opened it. The subject line sent a chill down her spine. "Upcoming board meeting, your presentation needed." The stakes were suddenly much higher. What would she bring to the table? And could she truly deliver in front of an audience that brought visions of both triumph and terror? Her heart thumped like a drum in her chest as she read the email for the third time. The words seemed to dance on the screen, morphing into a daunting specter of her anxieties. "Upcoming board meeting, your presentation needed." The implications surged through her. They wanted her to lead, to present her ideas, to stand in front of decision-makers who would judge not just her insights but her very worth. Emma shut her laptop and paced the room, her mind racing. The shadows of self-doubt crept in with relentless familiarity. Could she really articulate her thoughts in a way that resonated? Could she bring innovation to a group that had long been mired in traditional approaches? Each question felt like a heavy anchor dragging her down into doubt. But amidst this turmoil, a voice inside her whispered, "What if you shine?" She stopped, staring out of the window at the city skyline glistening under the moonlight. It was beautiful and intimidating all at once, a mirror of her own aspirations and apprehensions. That beauty was also a reflection of her potential, but she had to sift through the doubt and fear to find it. Taking a deep breath, she returned to her laptop, determined to mold the dormant ideas she had poured onto the document earlier. The mere act of typing again felt empowering, each keystroke chiseling away at the stone of her indecision. She began to sketch out her presentation. The innovative strategies she had already devised for the clinic could serve as a blueprint not only for resource optimization but also for community outreach and engagement keys to revitalizing the clinic. Every phrase she wrote carried the weight of her resume, her experiences, and the deeper purpose she felt tugging at her heartstrings. She envisioned a slide depicting her ideas blending seamlessly with the visual storytelling, compelling enough to draw in her audience. As the ideas flowed, Emma felt the adrenaline course through her veins. She was not merely an employee at a struggling clinic. She was a catalyst for change, capable of transforming challenges into opportunities. For once, she wasn't merely preparing to fill a role, she was ready to seize it. But that exhilaration came at a cost. With each burgeoning idea, she grappled with the reality of exposure. What if the board didn't understand her vision? What if they rejected her approach? Could her self-worth withstand the scrutiny of potentially being deemed unprepared or, worse, irrelevant? She shook her head and pressed onward, reminding herself that this was not just about validation, it was about reclaiming her narrative. After hours of refining her presentation, Emma leaned back, evaluating the amount of work she had accomplished. She had poured not just ideas into her slides, but pieces of herself. She envisioned presenting with confidence, embracing that empowering thrill of recognition. Yet a thought clashed against her resolve: would it be enough? As Emma collected her notes and prepared for bed, a flicker of fear crept in. What if she blanked out during the presentation? What if she stumbled over her words in front of the board? The uncertainty twisted her stomach into knots. But just as quickly as the doubt surfaced, a steely resolve gripped her. She could prepare, practice, and respond. The very act of risking vulnerability was essential to her growth. With renewed determination, Emma made a commitment to face the meeting confidently, not just to prove to the board she was capable, but to prove it to herself. She could rise above her fears, and she could connect with others, stepping into the role she had long awaited. Yet, even as she resolved to forge ahead, a question lingered, gnawing at her consciousness. What awaited her at that meeting? Beyond professional success, could this opportunity reconnect her with the parts of herself she feared she had lost? Emma flipped off the lights, a restless energy still buzzing in her chest, as the thoughts whirled in her mind, leaving her eager and anxious for what came next. Just as sleep beckoned her, another notification pinged through her phone. It was Jake again. "I'd love to hear your thoughts before the meeting," he wrote. A mix of anxiety and excitement bubbled within her. Would this message be a lifeline, or a further entanglement in the complexity of her feelings towards him? Emma held her breath, caught between the anticipation of their connection and the uncertainty of where it might lead. Emma stared at her phone's screen, her heart racing at Jake's message. She hesitated, considering how to respond. Did she dare invite him into this whirlwind she had been creating? His interest felt like a double-edged sword. On one hand, she craved the validation that came from someone she respected. On the other, she feared the distraction he presented just when she needed focus. With a deep breath, she typed back, "I'd love to share my thoughts. When are you free?" There, she had opened a door. Almost instantly, a sense of relief washed over her. She had taken action, however small. It was a moment of connection she needed, a piece of support lying just outside her immediate orbit. As night turned to morning, Emma awoke with a sense of purpose. She had set her alarm early to fit in one last session of practice before the board meeting. The quiet of her living room contrasted sharply with the chaos in her head. Yet, in this solitude, she found clarity. Her presentation wouldn't merely revolve around statistics or projections. It was a chance to speak from her heart. She rehearsed her opening lines, visualizing the board members nodding in understanding as she articulated her vision for the clinic. With every repetition, the words flowed more easily. Each time she spoke, she infused her delivery with the passion that had initially fueled her ideas. By the time she finished, she felt more than just prepared, she felt empowered. However, the exhilaration of her practice was dampened by a creeping thought. What if Jake's presence at the meeting became a source of distraction rather than support? Her instincts told her to keep her focus, yet the more she pondered his invitation, the more she felt an inexplicable pull toward him, a gravitational force that beckoned her to intertwine their paths. They met later that afternoon in a bustling coffee shop near her office, a world away from the sterile walls of the meeting room where she would soon present. As Emma settled into her chair across from Jake, the moment felt charged before they even spoke. He wore a casual smile, his relaxed demeanor offsetting her heightened energy. "I'm really looking forward to your presentation," Jake said, his eyes sparkling with genuine interest. "Thanks," Emma replied, masking her nervousness with a smile. "I've been putting a lot into it." They exchanged small talk, but she couldn't shake the reality of the impending meeting. Absorbing his compliments and encouragement, she felt the subtle winds of confidence swirling within her. Yet beneath that surface, the nagging apprehension returned. Would sharing that moment with him, this fleeting touch of intimacy, distract her from the very ambitions she was so determined to claim? Just then, Jake leaned in, his voice lowering. "You know, what you're doing is brave. I've seen too many capable people shy away from their potential. You don't seem like one of them." Feeling the weight of his observation, she pondered the thought. Was it truly bravery when every action felt like battling the shadows of her former self? Somewhere, deep down, she knew she was on the brink of transforming her fears into a formidable fuel for growth. But her next steps loomed like a cliff. Did she leap alone, or could she allow someone else into the risky depths of her aspiration? That question churned in her mind, leaving her on edge as she considered the pull of Jake's presence and what it might mean for the direction of her journey. As they parted ways, Emma felt a sudden clarity. Embracing this complexity, her emotions for Jake amidst her professional aspirations, was part of the evolution she sought. It wasn't just about the presentation, it was about the connections she fostered along the way. Yet her excitement was met with a piercing realization: this moment was just the beginning. The true test awaited her at the meeting, where she would confront the board, the culmination of her efforts and growth. What awaited there could unravel everything or pave the way for the new life she envisioned. As she walked back to her office, determination coursed through her veins, and with it came questions that demanded answers. Could vulnerability be her greatest strength? Would the meeting affirm her aspirations or challenge everything she thought she knew about herself? Emma's resolve intensified, knowing she was close to a transformative point, but the outcome was still shrouded in uncertainty. Emma arrived at the boardroom, her heart pounding. The long table was intimidating, lined with executives whose faces blurred with anxiety and excitement as she stepped into their midst. The air hummed with a mix of expectation and skepticism, a palpable challenge she had not fully anticipated. Taking her place at the front, she glanced at the presentation slides. They were colorful, carefully constructed, designed to both inform and inspire. Yet beyond the slides, she understood this moment was about more than statistics and plans. It was an intersection of her personal journey and professional ambitions. As she adjusted the remote in her hand, her palms felt clammy. Each beat of her heart echoed a silent mantra: "You belong here." When she turned to face the board members, the room fell silent. Their expressions held no warmth, just critical gazes waiting to dissect every word she uttered. The familiar self-doubt tugged at her, whispering that maybe she was not qualified, or worse, that she would fail. With a deep breath, she began her presentation, outlining her vision with clarity. As she spoke, something shifted within her. The passion enveloped her like a comforting cloak, fueling her to share not just her plans, but the reasoning behind them, the personal stories that ignited her commitment. She illustrated her quest to reshape the clinic, to make it a beacon of hope for families facing challenges she understood all too well. Just as she began to feel genuinely engaged, a sharp voice sliced through her narrative. "What makes you think we should invest in this initiative?" One of the board members leaned forward, skepticism stark in his brow. "What data supports your projections?" The question hit hard, a direct challenge to her credibility. Inside, Emma felt the urge to retreat, but retreating wasn't an option. Instead, she summoned every ounce of resilience. "I appreciate the concern. While data is crucial, I believe in the power of real stories, too. I am one of those stories." The weight of her vulnerability hung in the air, raw yet empowering. She continued, drawing from her experience and the community's need. The board members seemed momentarily captured, and she noticed the flicker of intrigue in their expressions. Her earlier hesitation faded, overtaken by purpose. The meeting morphed from just a presentation to a discussion of shared values, empathy and ambition colliding. But as the atmosphere warmed, so did the stakes. She could see Jake's face in her mind, his encouraging words a reminder that this journey was both unique and communal. But would she be able to navigate these waters alone? The doubt resurfaced, a whisper that shadowed her confidence with the dread of vulnerability. What if this radical honesty led to an uncomfortable confrontation? Could she safeguard her aspirations while inviting connection? With every challenge that arose, the interplay between her ambitions and a potential relationship twisted like a double helix, complicating her path. As she wrapped up her proposal with a call to action, a flurry of thoughts coursed through her mind. Acceptance hinged on conviction, and her vulnerabilities had become her strength. This meeting was more than a professional milestone, it was a pivot point where personal connection could either lift her higher or drown her in uncertainty. The murmurs of conversation began around the table, but her focus sharpened. She prepared for any follow-up questions, eyes darting between the board members, catching small signals of interest and doubt. Yet, the looming threat of judgment felt like an anchor, threatening to weigh down her resolve. The tension mounted in the room. She clamped down on her rising panic, reminding herself that this was her moment to assert her identity. "I'm ready to work hard for this vision. I'm not just asking for your support, I'm inviting you to believe in what we can achieve together." As the board deliberated, a knot of anticipation tightened in her stomach. Would she receive the affirmation she craved, or would this opportunity slip through her fingers? The reality of facing both judgment and possibility sent electric shivers down her spine. Just then, the door swung open, and Jake stepped inside the boardroom with a calm confidence that made her heart race anew. Her thoughts fractured. Was his presence a distraction or a lifeline? The moment of choice was upon her. Would she accept the convergence of their paths at this pivotal juncture, or maintain the silence that had defined her journey until this point? The room buzzed with expectation, but inside, a tide of emotional turmoil surged within her, forcing her to confront not only her professional aspirations but the very essence of who she wanted to be. What awaited her now might not only reshape her career but intertwine their paths in ways she had yet to explore. As the board members looked from her to Jake, the fabric of her future began to weave itself with uncertainty. Could this meeting lead to an alliance that transcended the professional, a reception of support that could redefine her understanding of partnership? Emma held her breath as Jake approached the boardroom, his presence both grounding and electrifying. His confident demeanor shifted the energy in the room, but it also stirred apprehensions in Emma's mind. She had just laid bare her soul to the board, and now Jake, unbeknownst to him, was a variable in this high-stakes equation. Could his involvement amplify the risks she had just embraced? "Sorry to interrupt," Jake said smoothly, drawing all eyes. "I wanted to support Emma during her presentation." His mention of her name stirred an inexplicable warmth in Emma, yet it simultaneously triggered the fear that it could cause her passion to be overshadowed by doubt. She struggled to maintain her composure, knowing fully well what was at stake. As the board members welcomed him with curious glances, Emma felt a mix of gratitude and trepidation. Would Jake's presence bolster her position as a serious contender among the executives, or would it undermine the individuality she fought so hard to establish? The vulnerabilities she had so courageously shared now felt precarious, exposed before both the board and Jake. Emma turned back to the board, determined to reclaim the moment. "Thank you, Jake. I've shared my vision for this clinic because I believe in our capacity to change lives. But it's also imperative to connect on values I believe you share. She scanned the room, gauging reactions. The atmosphere felt different now, an amalgamation of hope and uncertainty, but the potential for collaboration hung in the air like an open invitation. Jake leaned against the wall, audience-like, but she caught his subtle nod of encouragement as she resumed. I understand there are concerns about data and projections, she continued, infusing her voice with authority. However, what I bring to this table transcends numbers. It's about people, community, and resilience, the essence of who we are as an organization. The skepticism etched on the board members' faces faltered just a fraction. She dared to meet Jake's eyes, which sparkled with an unspoken promise of unwavering support. This moment wasn't simply about her career, this was a formative step in defining her future. The doubts, while lurking, were becoming less potent as her passion rewrote the narrative. But the skepticism wasn't entirely dispelled. One of the board members, clearly unsettled, leaned forward. This sounds promising, Emma, yet we live in a data-driven world. Can you elaborate on how you plan to measure success without the traditional metrics? Caught off guard, Emma hesitated for a heartbeat. The question drummed up a familiar fear of being inadequate. Yet, instead of succumbing, she leaned into the discomfort. Success won't just be measured by statistics but through feedback and the stories of those we impact. I propose establishing a series of community forums, real conversations with the people we serve. Their insights will provide a qualitative layer to our metrics. As Emma spoke, she felt the tension in her chest ease slightly. This validation of her emotional perspective felt liberating, forming a bridge between the empirical and the intuitive. Emboldened, she continued articulating her vision, drawing in the strength she had uncovered throughout this process. After wrapping up the presentation, the board shifted in their seats, muttering amidst themselves. Some brows furrowed, others seemed contemplative. As their deliberation continued, she sensed Jake at her side, and their earlier shared goals buzzed in the air between them. Yet as the minutes dragged on, unease settled in her stomach again. Would they see the merit in her approach? Would the support crumble like sand beneath her feet? Just then, a thought ignited within her, illuminating the direction of her path. She would take charge of her narrative, professional and personal. If this moment showed her anything, it was that connection created depth and opportunity. But would it be enough to shift the perception of this board? The chairperson's voice interrupted her thoughts, calling for votes on the proposal. Emma's heart raced. The moment of truth was at hand. Would their response be the affirmation she desperately sought or the rejection that loomed like an unwanted specter? She could almost visualize the stark contrast, but it was not just about the proposal, it was about what her success would mean for her and Jake, their navigation of this uncharted territory together. As the final votes were cast, the tension in the air transformed into a tangible pulse. Who they would become together hinged on this moment. What awaited her next could redefine the paths they were bound to take, both personally and professionally. Emma braced herself. She had initiated this journey, but she had no idea just how deeply it would ripple through her life ahead. Heartbeats echoed in Emma's ears, drowning out the whispers of uncertainty as the chairperson surveyed the board, assessing the room's mood. She focused her gaze on the flickering expressions of the members. Some appeared skeptical, while others displayed a flicker of interest. Emma felt the weight of their expectations pressing down like a palpable force. This was more than a proposal, it was a declaration of who she was and what she stood for. Jake stood solidly by her side, exuding a calm that settled her nerves but also ignited an awareness of their burgeoning connection. She could sense the determination radiating from him, but it was accompanied by a trepidation of its own. What if her success invalidated his role, or worse, what if her failure fractured whatever nascent bond they were forging? The chairperson cleared his throat, interrupting her contemplations. The votes have been counted. We are prepared to proceed with Emma's proposal. A collective breath seemed to escape the board as the implications settled. As the chairperson continued, highlighting key points of the report, Emma felt a mix of exhilaration and dread. They were on the verge of entering a new chapter, but simultaneously bracing themselves for any backlash. How would she manage it if their support came with conditions, a demand for metrics, for data that underlined her vision? When the chairperson announced the official approval, Emma's heart soared momentarily. The victory felt surreal. She had crafted a space for her dreams to unfurl. But then a gripping doubt settled in. Was she merely a puppet in a larger game? "Congratulations, Emma," Jake said, his praise genuine. A rush of warmth surged through her, but the complexity of her emotions lingered. "Thank you," Emma replied, forcing a smile as she grappled with the gravitational pull of responsibility. Being transparent had been empowering, yet she found herself grappling with the ramifications. Would she have to fight for every step forward, defending her vision against the relentless tide of traditional metrics? As the meeting adjourned, the cacophony of departing board members enveloped her. The echoes clashed with the exhilarating triumph in her chest. "You did great," Jake said again, leaning in closer, his voice low but laced with sincerity. "Did I?" Emma questioned under her breath, anxiously pulling her thoughts together. She didn't want to appear unsure, especially not in front of someone whose belief in her seemed unwavering. But with each passing moment, her self-doubt nagged. Was her emotional approach enough to sustain credibility? "You not only presented a compelling argument," Jake reassured, "but you stood up for what you believe in. That's the foundation of real leadership." His words struck a chord within her, yet uncertainty twisted in her gut. What other battles awaited her? As they exited the building, a sudden rush of cold air hit them, shocking her senses. She glanced at Jake, who appeared equally caught in the wind's grip, but there was a warmth in his gaze that steadied her. "Ready for next steps?" he asked, his tone light but laced with a seriousness that awakened a new spark of motivation. The uncertainty about the board and her proposal still loomed, but she realized that this journey could not merely hinge on one victory. "Absolutely," Emma declared, feeling a sense of ownership begin to take root. This was just the beginning, a launch pad rather than an endgame. In seizing this opportunity, she could ignite necessary changes within the organization. But as determination washed over her, a voice in the back of her mind whispered that her path would soon intertwine with unforeseen challenges, ones that would demand more than strategic proposals. As they stepped onto the bustling sidewalk, Jake turned toward her, a glint of mischief in his eyes. "I've heard about a potential collaboration that might benefit both of us. Are you up for some risk-taking?" "What kind of collaboration?" she asked, intrigued yet wary. "The kind that may disrupt everything you thought you knew." Jake's smirk shifted the air between them, and Emma felt a realization that her life was about to veer sharply away from the familiar. With her heart racing, she wondered what risk he was referencing and whether it would demand even more of her than before. The stakes had risen, and she knew her newfound agency would be tested in ways she could never have anticipated. Could she navigate this new terrain while maintaining her vision? Emma held on to the hope blooming within her, convinced that whatever lay ahead would be worth the gamble if only she could harness the courage to dive deep. Emma's pulse quickened as Jake's words lingered in the air, a tantalizing promise of upheaval that set her mind racing. She could feel the uncertainty coiling within her, a tight knot of fear and exhilaration. The prospect of collaboration, while exciting, more importantly ignited her desire to prove herself and transcend the doubts that had shadowed her journey thus far. "Disrupt everything I thought I knew?" Emma repeated, an edge of skepticism threading through her tone. "That sounds intense. Are you saying this will be a major shift for both of us?" Jake met her gaze steadfastly. "Intense can be good. It's where growth happens, Emma. We have the chance to break the mold." Emma found herself yearning for the authentic challenge he proposed. There was something intoxicating about stepping boldly into ambiguity, rearing to shatter her self-imposed limitations. "Okay. Tell me more." As they settled into his office, the refined sensibility of the room battled with the chaotic energy building within her. Jake leaned forward, his eyes alight with fervor as he sketched the outlines of their potential collaboration, a venture aimed at merging innovative technologies with community-driven initiatives. "Think about it," he articulated passionately. "This could transform the market. Your vision aligns perfectly with where the industry is heading. I want you at the forefront leading this." Each word felt like a challenge, a dare to unearth the courage she often struggled to discern within herself. Could she step into this role, challenge entrenched systems, and champion her ideals without losing sight of her values? For once, the prospect of confrontation didn't frighten her. It ignited a latent fire, illuminating pathways she had scarcely imagined. What are the obstacles, really? She asked, dipping deeper into her curiosity. Risk of failure, of course, Jake replied, flicking through a presentation that captured her keen interest. There will be traditionalists resistant to change. Some may call for data that doesn't align with your ethos. You would need to articulate your vision in a way that resonates and doesn't compromise. He wasn't just referencing metrics, he was nudging at the very core of her beliefs, the empathetic approach she valued alongside measurable success. Emma bit her lip, torn between her conviction for the transformative potential of her ideas and the nagging need for validation through traditional methods. Are you prepared to handle criticism? He pressed, an earnest intensity in his voice that demanded her attention. Criticism is an expectation, isn't it? She retorted, her voice steadying as resolve cemented in her veins. Every bold move draws lines, those who support and those who oppose. But if I falter, it won't be because I didn't stand by my intentions. Jake's smile radiated warmth and encouragement. That's the spirit I want to see. This is not just about convincing others, it's about believing in your path and forging it despite the naysayers. As they explored the strategies required to navigate this potentially tumultuous journey, Emma began to feel a sense of empowerment coalesce around her. Each idea exchanged solidified her intentions. She would need to engage both qualitative and quantitative insights, yet she held steadfast to her emotional foundation. But as the conversation expanded, she couldn't help but glance toward the shadows of doubt at the edges of her resolve. If their collaboration garnered the inevitable skepticism, how would she defend a vision that diverged from the conventional metrics? The thought wrapped its tendrils around her mind, begging to be addressed. Would she truly lead with empathy while also demanding respect from the board? She felt the weight of possibility pressing against her convictions. So, when do we proceed next? She inquired, a simmering eagerness lacing her words. Jake hesitated for a moment, the air thickening as he weighed his response. Tomorrow, we'll pitch it to a select group of stakeholders. But be prepared, they'll want to see facts, numbers. You'll have to show them why this new direction matters, even if it means stepping outside their established box. A swell of nerves washed over Emma. The looming prospect of scrutiny had never felt so imminent, but simultaneously, a stark clarity dawned within her. She realized this would be her defining moment, not only to advocate for her ideas but also to cement her identity as a leader grounded in conviction. Let us do it, she asserted, her voice cutting through the tension with newfound fervor. As Jake beamed, the possibilities and pressure coalescing into a daunting promise, Emma felt the shift within herself, igniting a tenacity she had hungered to embrace. She could no longer shrink in the shadow of uncertainty, her aspirations demanded more. However, just as she settled into her resolve, a text pinged on Jake's phone, an unexpected interruption that wrote a new chapter. We need to discuss the stakeholders' feedback. It might not be what you hoped for. Emma's heart sank, every plan suddenly tangled in a web of unpredictability. What didn't they see? What awaited her in that feedback? The stakes were rising higher, and she could feel the world tilting precariously beneath her feet once more. With a sense of foreboding creeping in, she braced herself for the challenges ahead, realizing that this new road was fraught with unknown perils ready to test her mettle. Would she buckle under the pressure or rise to the occasion? The next morning light filtered through Emma's window, illuminating the scattered papers and notes she'd amassed in anticipation of the big pitch. As dawn broke, anxiety and determination mingled in her chest, creating an electrifying cocktail of emotion. She had spent the previous night rehearsing her presentation, an intricate balance of personal conviction and persuasive analytics, yet the looming feedback gnawed at her. Emma dreaded what awaited her within that room. She took a moment to breathe deeply, trying to cultivate the poise she knew she needed. Today was not just about presenting an idea, it was about reconfiguring her identity as a leader. With every passing minute, she grappled with her fear. What if the feedback shattered her aspirations? What if they didn't see the value in her vision? Shaking her head, she shoved the doubts aside. That path led to stagnation, and she was committed to forging ahead. Each measured step brought her closer to the conference room, yet with each stride, she felt the weight of scrutiny brighten into a sense of urgency. She had chosen the road to challenge, and today she would lay the foundation for her future. In the long, glass-walled room, Jake was already setting up the projector, an unwitting harbinger of the tension to come. Emma joined him, her heart pounding louder than her footsteps. "Did you get any context on the feedback?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with curiosity. Jake looked up, gauging her demeanor. "Just that they're concerned about the scalability of the model. It's not unusual for new ideas to face skepticism, but you need to be prepared for some tough questions." Hearing this, Emma again faced the shadow at the edge of her resolve. However, she quickly reshaped the moment. Skepticism doesn't have to signal failure. It's validation of the risks we're taking. "Exactly," Jake said, his approval lifting her spirits. "It's also an opportunity. Show them the potential for disruption, not just in numbers, but through the narrative." As the stakeholders filtered into the room, Emma positioned herself at the front, her heart churning yet resolute. Facing them, she recalled her commitment to authenticity. She decided to lead with her story, illustrating her vision not merely through data but through the personal journey that brought her here. When the presentation began, Emma deftly navigated the content, weaving empirical evidence with evocative imagery of what their initiative could become. Enthusiasm surged through her as she spoke, her words a fluid conviction. Yet, when she invited questions, the tide shifted. A seasoned executive leaned forward, skepticism etched into his features. "Emma, while your vision is compelling, how can you account for the financial risk if traditionalists dominate the market? What about the numbers?" That question hung heavy in the air, and for a split second, Emma's breath caught. She could feel the eyes of the room narrowing. Yet, in that vulnerability, something shifted inside her. "I understand the concern," she said slowly, her voice calming. "But what my approach offers is a transformative potential that stretches beyond short-term metrics. It's about creating loyalty and engagement, not just transactions. If we fail to adapt, we lose the opportunity to resonate with the market on a deeper level." A murmur rippled through the room, the ambience slowly shifting. Emma grasped that this was her moment not just to defend her vision but to reposition it in a way that addressed their fears head-on. She continued to articulate benefits that transcended numbers, deeper connections with customers, rejuvenation of brand loyalty, and a global perspective on innovation. As the conversation deepened, Emma sensed the oscillation of doubt shifting, like the dampened yet inevitable resounding echo of a bell. The stakeholders exchanged glances, their initial reticence faltering. Yet, within the warmth of her growing confidence, the specter of feedback still lurked, a reminder that not everyone would be convinced. When the session concluded, Jake approached her, pride evident in his demeanor. "You turned the tide, Emma." They were listening. "Not all of them," she replied, recollecting the hardened gaze of that executive. "What if they still don't see our potential? What if their concerns spiral again?" Jake's expression softened. "You faced them, and that's crucial. Tomorrow is another day, another opportunity to refine your vision." As the sun began to dip below the horizon, Emma gazed out the window, reflecting on the serendipity of her journey. Would she find the tenacity to push through any remaining barriers? She felt invigorated but knew the stakes were higher than before. Just as she thought about strategies to further bolster her proposal, her phone buzzed again with a new notification. It read, "The board has more questions. You need to adjust your strategy if you want to succeed." A knot of apprehension coiled in her stomach as the weight of their expectations loomed. Would this setback become yet another obstacle to navigate, or was it a pathway to transformation? Emma awoke early the next day, the sun peeking through the curtains casting a warm glow on her uncertainty. The lingering doubts from the previous day's meeting loomed heavy in her mind, but they also ignited a spark of determination. She was on the brink of something transformative, and now was the moment to fortify her resolve. With precision, Emma meticulously revised her presentation based on the board's feedback. She tirelessly explored new strategies, eliminating the fear of failure and crafting a narrative that would encapsulate her vision, one that resonated with both metrics and values, an intersection of emotion and empirical evidence. As she organized her thoughts, she recognized her growth. This was no longer merely an attempt to prove her worth, but a chance to inspire change grounded in empathy. Arriving at the boardroom once more, equipped with her revised presentation, there was a tangible shift in the air as she prepared. Instead of the familiar knots of self-doubt, she felt a calm assurance settle into place. This was her opportunity to redefine her identity, not just as a survivor of her past but as a leader ready to embrace the challenges ahead. As she presented her adjusted strategy, Emma emphasized the blend of traditional data with stories that illustrated community impacts. Each slide was infused with conviction, and she found her rhythm. Every statistic was a building block, while personal anecdotes served as emotional anchors. She could see the board members respond, their initial skepticism beginning to melt away under the warmth of her passion. "Emma, while this approach is certainly compelling, how do you believe it will alter the dynamics of our existing relationships with stakeholders?" One of the executives questioned, his challenge lingering against the thick silence. Emma seized the moment. "By fostering deeper connections, we not only retain loyalty but also create advocates who resonate with our mission on an emotional level. Our stakeholders deserve stories that connect us to them. Those who see themselves represented will always fight for us." The room buzzed with contemplation. She could sense the shift. She was no longer defending her vision, she was inviting them to be part of a journey. After answering further questions with poised clarity, Emma concluded her presentation. "If we do not adapt, we will surely fall behind. This initiative is about evolution, not just for our organization but the richer world we want to build." As her words hung in the air, the chairperson took a moment before addressing the room. "Emma, we appreciate the revisions you've made. Your perspective brings additional dimensions we had not completely considered. We're prepared to support this initiative moving forward." Joy surged through her, a wave of relief mingling with validation. Strengthened by her experience and propelled by newfound clarity, Emma transformed once more. She was no longer just reacting but proactively leading with a grounded vision. As the board voted, and she watched the enthusiasm in the room, a sense of belonging enveloped her. In that moment, everything aligned: the hard work, the fears embraced, and the connections she built. Emma had successfully woven her professional aspirations into the fabric of her identity, emerging as a force for change. After the meeting concluded, Jake approached her, a warm smile illuminating his face. "You did it, Emma. I knew you had it in you." For the first time, Emma felt that she truly belonged in her own skin, that she had manifested both professionalism and authenticity. "Thank you for believing in me," she replied, understanding his support had played a pivotal role in her transformation. As they stood together, the sun casting a luminous glow through the office windows, Emma's heart swelled with a sense of purpose. She had conquered her fears and recognized her worth not only in the professional realm but personally too. "I feel ready for what comes next," she said, meeting Jake's gaze. "And ready for every challenge this journey brings." Today marked the end of one chapter for Emma and the beginning of another, one where she would navigate her career with a strong sense of agency. She had proven not only her competence but also reclaimed her identity, turning her past struggles into stepping stones. With every fiber of her being reaffirming her potential, Emma stepped forward into the future, fully aware of her strength and purpose. Now, it's your turn to harness the power of personal growth and transformation. You need to subscribe now to our channel to catch more exclusive stories of overcoming challenges. Leave a like now to boost our algorithms and support the narrative of inspiration. Comment below with your thoughts on Emma's journey and what you learned about resilience. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion.